Former Mayor Wellington Webb, Representative Leslie Herod running for Denver Mayor. Thank you for the invitation to sit down today.
Thank you.
You've invited us into your home because you made a decision about the mayor's race. Tell us about that.
Well, I did make a decision, and it was a very difficult one because there are a lot of good people running. And secondly, I know a lot of these people, and some of them, frankly, I've known a lot longer than I've known Leslie. And that made it also more difficult because every time you endorse someone, you normally make one person happy and 10 to 12 others angry. But I think that the position of mayor is so important, and it's so important at this juncture that we need to have the best person available to run for mayor, to be elected mayor, and to govern as mayor, because I think the city needs a new generation of leadership, a new generation that brings fresh ideas, that brings fresh energy, that has the ability to connect with all segments of the population. And lastly, that runs on a program that, for lack of a better term, what I call a city manager with vision, because you have to have the capacity to do both. You can't run on all vision and not being able to govern and manage the city, and you can't just be a manager. I use my criteria, which I've used, and I used this in the last election, in the last mayor's election. I said, so if 9/11 occurred in Denver, who do you want to gather the people, to console them, to lead them, to bring passion and bring the whole community together? And a lot of people have ideas on paper, but to be able to do that is a unique talent. I think Leslie has that talent, and I think she's proved it on a couple of occasions. One was with the shooting in Colorado Springs, and people laugh at me because I say I'm just an old guy sitting on the porch drinking lemonade, but I know everything that goes on in the city because people call and tell me I don't have to go out. And I know the response she had. I know the comments she made to members of the Denver community, to members of the LGBTQ community, bringing people together and consoling them and saying we're going to get through this together. And to me, that's part of what a mayor does. It's about that leadership. And I think it's also important that one has the ability to show that they can get things done. I tried to talk Leslie in about 10, 12 years ago running for RTD, which she rejected the idea. She had bigger ambition, which I didn't know at the time. One of my clients is in the film industry, and I'm a Western history buff, and I love Westerns. I mean, I've watched every version of the shootout at OK Corral, from Robert Mitchum up to Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. And every time I watch Yellowstone, and the tagline at the end, filmed in Montana, and I told Governor Polis, I said, something wrong with this. Why can't it be filmed in Colorado? Our state is as beautiful as Montana. We should be putting more money into the film industry. And he said, well, I've not been very supportive of that, but I'll relook at it. And we took that to Leslie and found out that Georgia has the gold standard. And I'm saying, how can Georgia have the gold standard on movies? But they're open for business state, and that's where they're shooting movies left and right down there. And so Leslie, through her position on the Joint Budget Committee, started putting more money into the film industry to Donald Zuckerman, the film commissioner, to get more movies, TV series filmed here in Colorado. And to me, that's kind of what you have to have, the ability to get things done, the ability to work with both sides of the aisle. The mayor is the philosophical, moral, political leader of the city. And the mayor is also the one that can't run away. So, Kyle, I mean, this ain't totally related, but this is my philosophy of government. The Congress is like the Air Force. They're way out there somewhere. They drop these unfunded mandates and all this other crap from Washington that then you have to implement. Governors are like the Navy. They're concerned, they got their ships going around the states they govern, and they're concerned with their territorial boundaries. Mayors are the grunts. They're the soldiers. They're the folks on the ground. They're the ones you see at the gas station. They're the ones you see in the grocery store. They're the ones you see walking down the street. They're the ones that you hear from that say you're doing a good job, or they're the ones that say you're arrogant and snobbish, or they're the ones that say you did a terrible job, or they're the ones that say, and you don't get a chance to pick and choose. You have to take what comes in front of you. So if a kid gets shot, I went to 12 funerals while I was mayor, 6 police officers, 3 sheriffs, and 3 firemen. You show up, and you have to show there. And I think the other point is that most people become mayor, they don't end up going anywhere else. There are a couple of exceptions. But for me, they also have to be inspirational. I've heard Leslie speak a couple of times. Not surprised, because one, she's not Baptist. Everyone raised in the Baptist church normally is going to outspeak anyone else. And so I said, that's interesting. And so when you start combining the assets of inspirational, new leadership, new generation, new ideas, being able to get things done, those things all, to me, start summing up what I think a mayor does, and I think she brings that talent. I started writing some notes down here to see if I missed anything.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can I ask you, is there a certain challenge ahead of the city right now that you are particularly concerned about, that you think that she's uniquely suited to go after?
Yes. And it's I also like World War II movies. You got to have a commander as mayor that the people are going to follow. And that's just not people going to the grocery store. That's also city employees. And I think the city does dumb stuff that's unnecessary. Example, why would a cabinet head fire a city employee that's 5 years away from their pension Christmas week? Does that build team spirit, a camaraderie for city workers? I don't think so. So there has to be someone that can lead the city to tackle all of the issues. See, and this has nothing to do with most people talk about, well, we're going to deal with the homeless, we're going to deal with public safety, we're going to deal with that. I don't know how you're going to deal with any of those things. Because my experience has been being mayor is like being the captain of a ship. Just because you're here doesn't mean down here is going to listen to you. And when you say that you want the ship to turn left, when you give it up here, it takes a while to filter down. And I think it's important that that city workforce is willing to work for that leader and implement the changes that that leader wants to make to govern the city. And I think it's also important that they clearly understand what the direction of the city is going to be under their leadership, and that their cabinet and everyone else follows their direction. Now, there are different models. Some people like to delegate everything. I was more big city mayor, maybe East Coast, where I had my hands on everything. My people worked for me. We never worked less than 16 hours a day. That was the norm. I mean, we didn't write that in anywhere. But they also knew I would err on the side of little people. And those are the ones that I think oftentimes feel neglected. Need somebody that's going to be willing to stand up to big business, to work with them, to make life easier for them so they don't have to wait 3 or 4 years for a permit, but to also say, I represent, as mayor, the taxpayers of Denver. I don't represent you as a developer. I'll work with you to develop if it's a fair deal.
Can I ask you, what message do you hope that voters take from the fact that he's endorsing your campaign?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I'm extremely honored to have your endorsement. Thank you. And I know it's a tough decision. You know a lot of folks in the city.
And a lot of them that's running.
You know a lot of them that are running. But what is most inspiring to me is that for Mayor Webb, as the former mayor and former representative from House District 8, was when I went with you to the basketball game. And we went and saw the Nuggets play. And when we walked into that arena, you would have thought he was about to walk onto the court. The amount of people that stood and clapped, the amount of city employees that wanted to come up to him and shake his hand and just say thank you, that showed me what type of leader he was and still is as mayor. We have to understand that city employees are so important when it comes to getting things done in the city, and they're not feeling supported right now. And so to see someone who has folks who have been serving for years, and some retired, but some still working with the city, coming and showing their appreciation to him, it mattered, and it struck a chord with me. And so from there, we started to have some real conversations about where the city is going and how we're going to get there. And so for me, having this this endorsement means that I have a partner in this work, because the city is facing some of the toughest challenges that we've seen. They were facing some pretty tough challenges when Webb was in office as well, and we're going to have to do that together. And so that's what that endorsement means. I think it's also important for someone who has been the mayor to understand the nuance and the fine line and the alignment of experience, but also kind of that sometimes can mean same old, status quo. Not bold, not new, not the change we need. And Mayor Webb's endorsement kind of is that statement, right? That I have the experience to lead, but additionally, it won't be status quo. That we are going to lead for what Webb calls Joe Sixpack, the everyday person in Denver, where the status quo, quite frankly, isn't working for them today, right now. Status quo might be working for a few in Denver. I'd argue not as many as you would think. But that we need bold leadership, and to have that supported by someone who understands what that means, understand how hard it is to actually implement that bold leadership, it means a lot.
I want to ask you about that idea of status quo.
Yeah.
Because obviously you led the city for 12 years.
Yeah.
You endorsed Michael Hancock. He's led the city for 12 years. So I can see critics saying that your endorsement is essentially an endorsement of the status quo because of the long time that you led the city and then Mayor Hancock led the city. Either one of you are welcome to respond to that.
Well, when I endorsed Michael, it was a very difficult time, as it is now, because two other people running in that race worked for me. Mm-hmm. Carol Borgen worked for me for, I think, 10 years. James Mejia worked for me for 12. And it took me a long time to make that endorsement. And I made it basically with the same criteria that I just shared with you. If we had 9/11, I closed the World Trade Center over the businesses in Denver that were in the World Trade Center because I was afraid that the attack in New York, if somebody wanted to do something here to hurt Denver citizens, that I'd rather err on the side of being safe. Mm-hmm. And so Michael served 12 years, but that's a voter's decision. It's not my decision. My decision is only that I support people, and it's up to them to run and take their case to the people and then to let the people decide.
Despite the fact that you supported Mayor Hancock, do you think the city needs a change in direction?
Yes.
In what way most urgently?
I'd like to see, when I said new leadership, new bold leadership, less delegation to cabinet people, because I think the city attorney's office has made some tragic errors in judgment. One, Denver was one of the last cities to do extensions on concession contracts at the airport. Number two, another subject close to my heart, which I've tried to stay out of. The law says, the planning office said, you go out and you get signatures in a petition for all the businesses and the people that reside around Park Hill Golf Course. And then if you bring those signatures in, we can have a hearing, a zoning hearing. And if 4 council people vote to oppose that zoning, that deal is dead. Mm-hmm. City attorney's office changed the rules, which I think is unfair, and I also think that's why people don't trust government. You can't have 2 sets of rules. And I think there's been so much emphasis on the big boys, the big shots. They don't look out for Joe and John's six-pack.
I take it you're going to be voting no on the April ballot measure on the redevelopment of Park Hill Golf Course?
Well, we're working on that. I wouldn't say. The likelihood is that I'll make a decision on that in the next few weeks.
Do you have a final decision on that?
On the Park Hill Golf Course, I do believe that it needs to go back to a vote of the people. The people will decide what happens with the Park Hill Golf Course.
So that's what's going to happen in April, and opponents say that the measure is constructed now, should not have been allowed to go through earlier this week, and is misleading. Do you have an issue with the way that it's currently going before voters in April? Is that okay with you?
That again is something that I think we'll all discuss. I know that there was quite a heated debate at City Council this week, and there are many sides around this issue. There is still actually a appeal right now to that process, and so we'll let that process play out and then make a determination on how I'll vote.
This might be a question that only political nerds like myself care about, but you talked about the difficulty that you had making a decision in the last open race for mayor, where you endorsed Michael Hancock over James Mejia and others, and then this race. So I looked up the date that you endorsed in that race, and it was 2 months later than now. Does that mean that this was an easier decision, despite the fact that there are 17 people on the ballot?
This was an easier decision. And not only was it an easier decision, the race is in April as opposed to in May. And I wanted people to know exactly where I am. Because I get these phone calls and people want to sit down. As I said, I've known Debbie probably longer than anybody running because she's been involved in politics her whole life. I supported Mike Johnson for state senator, governor, and U.S. senator. I like Kelly, and I like David. I like both of them, and they've been friends of the family. And there are others in the race, too. Kwame, I know his parents. I knew Kwame before Kwame knew he was coming around. I think that the city is really at a crossroads of where it goes from here. Yeah. And it needs strong, bold leadership. I think it needs new generation of leadership. Some of us will be here to give suggestions. I don't have the energy or desire to go out and run anything. But I think I'm a pretty smart guy. At least every mayor group in the country has elected me their president. So I think I have some credence that I know how government works and what it takes to make government to run. And I think one of the things you need is people that share your values and that are also willing to work for you for the benefit of the public. Yeah. I got one other, I also have another bias. Some of this Leslie may be hearing for the first time, I don't know. I was always struck by how many people said that they had 5 people from Harvard, 6 people from Yale on their staff. And I was always a little offended by that because I said, I had 2 from Yale, maybe 2 from Harvard. I had 2 or 3 from Metro, a couple from Western State, one from Alamosa. They represent the entire state. And the intellectual thought in our cabinet meetings of debate was more localized than academic intellectual theories of people that don't have a sense of Denver and don't have a sense of Colorado. I mean, I think we're losing part of that. I like the stock show. I like being able to see the mountains. A lot of young people don't care whether they see the mountains or not. To me, that's a pretty big deal. If you get older and you can't get out and you can't see the mountains, you've lost part of what the beauty of living here is all about. I'm a parks and open space guy. People at Red Rocks, I bought the property next to Red Rocks. The 3 houses there were grandfathered in so that no one else could build next to Red Rocks to keep it pristine. But we need someone that can manage the ship, manage the city, but also has visions of doing things differently. And that also means holding employees accountable and understand there's a difference and a distinction between once you get elected and everybody telling you you're my friend. They're not your friend. They're a business associate. And they'll be the same friend to the next mayor and the next mayor and the next mayor. And you can't get caught up with the lights of this publicity just because you're mayor.
I want to finish up with a couple questions for you about the state of the city. Do you think that Denver is a city in decline right now?
No, I think Denver's a city that's on the, let's see, what do we say in astrology? On the cusp.
What do you mean?
I mean, I think the city could go either way. I think the city could go either way. And I think it's important that we push it, that we want the best of us to lead the rest of us. I've always shared with politicians and elected officials the same as I used to say with students and new teachers. I'm one of the hardest teachers you'll ever have in class. But then I lighten up as we go, because if you start off easy, everyone's going to take you for granted. Leslie has a hard side too, which I've seen. And that's important, because you have to be able to say, no, we're not going to do that, and mean it. And that's important as well. And at the same time, then you can go out and help someone that needs the help from the city, because that's what the city's supposed to provide. Kyle, I got so upset at the King March, I just went off script with my Joe Sixpack. I said, this guy, he gets fired from the city. He comes home, public service, Excel has doubled his rates. I don't know if anybody, you guys have looked at your rates lately, but in 2 months, it's what it was then, and now the rate increase has gone in. The rates have gone up. Water rates went up last year. So now they're trying to figure out, fixed income, do I take a shower or a bath? No, I better take a shower because it's less water. I got to turn the heat down because I can't pay the Excel bill. But what we can do now is we can go and sit on the couch and watch the Nuggets or with the Joker, or we can watch the Avalanche with the Stanley Cup. Damn, we can't even do that because Comcast won't show it. Only if you go to Albuquerque or somewhere can you watch the Nuggets and Avalanche when they're on the road. I think that's criminal. They act like an absentee landlord. Now you're getting into passionate stuff. And now, the worst of all, they're going to send me a damn ticket, envelope to pay for trash? I mean, what do I get for paying taxes? I think that's wrong.
So on issues like Excel rates that are governed by the state and by PUC, by issues like the sports blackout, I've talked to the governor about. Would you like to see the next mayor of Denver get vocal about that stuff, get loud about that stuff?
Yeah, if they're going to represent all the people.
So
Polis heard it because he replaced one of the PUC commissioners because he didn't like the rates going up either. Now what Excel has done, they send you the bill now, they don't even put a return envelope in there. I mean, come on.
PUC's got a big meeting today. All right, I got 2 more questions for you. City's changed a lot since you left office 20 years ago. I mean, it's grown in population by 25%. City's changed a lot. You might answer this question already talking about your front porch and lemonade, but how confident are you that you still know what the city needs, considering how much time has passed and how much the city has changed since you left office?
That question makes about as much sense as asking Kobe Bryant, did he know how to play basketball? Yeah, I know the city. I know every neighborhood in the city. Mm-hmm. I eat on the north side. I eat on the west side. I live in the northeast side. My kids live in Mount Bello and Parkview. My grandkids live in Green Valley. My brother lives in Southmore Park. My other brother lives further south than that. I know. I've been in every neighborhood in this city. See, I love cities. That's what I do, and I also talk to a lot of younger people. So if they're walking past the house, they'll say Mayor Webb lives there. I can see them whispering, and sometimes I'll make them stop and talk to the kids in the stroller, the ones that have the earplugs in, that's walking the dogs. So I talk to people all the time. And then through reapportionment, I stay active. And I stay active on some national boards I serve on. So I'm one of the most active people. So do I know the issues? Yeah, I know them. I don't particularly care for some of the voting patterns of some of those on council, because I think that for some of them, I want stand-up people. I may vote for some people just because they're willing to stand up and be heard. I don't like go along with the flow. Someone's got to fight for the little guy. The big guys all get taken care of by lobbyists, and some firms have hired 10 or 15 lobbyists. And as they were telling my grandsons, you know, they're going to be opposing me on something, I say, well, yeah, if it's 15 of them and me, that about makes it even.
One last question for you. You were in an open field mayoral race one time and came from behind to win it in the runoff. There should be 17 candidates on the ballot. I know that you have a personal preference in the race, but how in the world does any candidate come to the public's attention in a field of 17?
Cream always rises to the top. They do it by their debate performance. They do it by their campaign's aggressive nature and going out to comply with all of the requirements that it takes to run a race, whether it's getting petitions in on time or ahead of time, whether it's getting their message out, whether it's talking to more people than anyone else. No one will ever outwork me, and I don't think anyone's going to outwork Leslie either. And I don't think they're going to outwork her campaign staff.
You're not worried about a field of 17?
I wouldn't worry if it's 30 or I'd be more worried if it's 30 people. It's too many people. So a lot of those messages are going to get lost. And it's also who's got the best plan for the city. And Kyle, another part that's important, they got to have a plan, but it can't be a plan that they just put something on paper and submitting because it sounds good. What ability do you have to think that they can implement the plan that they're showing you? What have they done to show you that they can get things done? By reaching across the aisle, Republican or Democrat or independents, willing to stand up for the little guy when everyone else leaves you out there by yourself, and you just stand taller because you are by yourself. I'm looking for a leader.
Very good. We'll leave it there. Former Mayor Webb, Representative Harrod, running for Denver Mayor. Thank you both for your time.
Sure.
One more thing.
Please.
So, to honor the commitment, and don't worry, they're not for you.
Okay.
But the work that it's going to take to win this race, I made sure to follow in your footsteps with the purple
I see
shoes
the
as
purple
well.
laces, yeah.
And the purple laces. And my team is committed to walking the entire city as well and making sure that we do understand the voices of the people of Denver. And while I will not sleep in people's houses every night,
I would not advise that.
I will be in every community.
Okay.
And so thank you for your leadership, for what you've done for the city, and I will take that on.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you.